Okay, second night on this Brodak Flight Streak trainer. It's time to put the doublers on the fuselage. I'm just starting the fuselage, but I wasn't sure exactly how the fellow should line this up, so I put the wing in place, and I'm really glad I did, because I was going to trim the top because this is too narrow where the wing saddle is, and I was going to trim the top to make it fit because that would follow the contour of the top of the wing a little better, but I noticed she was a little too low, so I ended up trimming the bottom, and I brought this up where it needed to be, so it's nice and even here now. And I'm really glad I did put that wing in first, because it's a lot easier to trim this plywood off the airplane than it would be to try to make everything fit on. And I got the wing set up where it needs to be. Little tiny gap here, but the wing does fit in the balsa very well. That's not going to be a problem, a little gap. I can fill that with epoxy or something. So what I'm going to do now is I got this fitting nice and flush in the bottom. Everything looks nice and even here. I'm just going to trace it out with pencil, so when I glue it on, it goes in exactly the same spot. So it's not mentioned in the plans, but like I said, put the wing in, get the plywood doubler in to fit, trim the bottom to fit instead of the top, just so that this all lines up nice and even on the nose. Otherwise, if you trim the top, which I was going to do, like I said, you're going to end up being too low, or too close to the bottom with the doubler. Okay, I did the same with the other side, on the right side, and I also made sure that the both doublers are at the same level, and so when you round this off you don't have a lopsided looking nose. Nobody probably noticed, but I would. My stuff like that kind of bugs me, I guess. But so that's all done. I lightly traced out where these need to be. I'm going to take these off carefully. And I marked left and right. Slide the wing out. It's got a real nice fit with that plywood piece in the middle there. So lay it down. I'm laying her down here. Creaky camera case mount. Now I got the left side facing up. The plans got it looking this way, upside down. Putting the right side on first, and I'm going to do the left side first, simply because the engine mount's on the right side. So I'm going to glue the plywood doubler on, and once that's dry, again I'm just using this high viscosity slow cure CA. And they say CA holds as well as epoxy, so we'll soon find out. I think it'll do the job just fine. And once I get the plywood on the left side, I can flip it over. Make sure my the hardwood engine mounts will have the right spacing for this engine. I'm using an Enya 15. I got it on eBay. It's brand new. And it's, as you can see, it's a control line engine. And my luck with Enya for RC stuff was great, so give this a try. And like I said, I was going to go with the 25, but I don't want this thing for racing, so Basically, I want this airplane to get my own self back into the control line flying. Anyway, I'll get the glue out and have at her. Now, if you are wearing a splint like I am, building a model, these damn edges in here, be careful. I put a couple of dings in the balsa already with it. Actually, before I glue this, I'm going to go around, make sure you know which side is out. I'm going to put a taper on all the outside edges except for the front. I'm not going to taper the front, but all the outside edges here to just to give it a nice flow into the fuselage. So I'll do that now. Okay, I'm going to put the CA on her. And I'm going just inside the line I drew. And you put it on the fuselage because you don't know on the plywood unless you went through the trouble to trace it out, which I didn't. Exactly where all your edges are on the balsa. Enough, but not too much. Okay, got everything, all my edges sloped off nice, not rounded, just tapered off on the side. Make sure, like I said before, get it on the outside. Stick this on. And I'll be using a couple of boxes of 50 caliber round ball for weight. The more I use it, the more I'm liking it. Alright. Make sure I'm flush in the wing saddle. There. Let that sit for a couple of minutes and should be good. Okay, time for the engine mounts. If you look at their mounts and you get anything like this is got a dark spot and it almost looks like there was a knot in this area. So what I'm going to do with that is put it towards the rear. That way I'm not going to be drilling through that or anything trying to mount the engine. So I got the two hardwood mounts, set them in place, and get them all adjusted up for this Enya. Good. And so yeah, actually this looks like she was pretty much set up for that 15. It fits right in there. What I'll do is I'll glue the top one, put it in place, leaving the bottom one in place loose. I'll put the engine in just to guarantee I got the right space. Another thing too is make sure you got no oil. Like the Enya is pretty dry, but wiping down with some alcohol or something, remove all the oil off the exterior of the engine. Get oil in your wood, ain't gonna stick worth shit with the glue. So yeah, just stick that in like that. And still, I'm going to use CA all the way through. That's what the plans are saying. And I don't think, imagine there's a lot of, well, if anybody watches this, guys might be saying, oh, you got to use epoxy, you got to use epoxy. But I don't think Brodak's going to recommend glues that aren't going to work. So I've never tried it. I've read where CA is just as strong as epoxy, so I'm going to put that to the test. Besides, your bolts are going to go right through the plywood, and this thing isn't going to fall apart. Okay, got her glued up. It's not a real tight fit in there, but I'll tell you, that, well, thick CA is a pretty good gap filler anyway. I'll stick the engine in. Good pressing in there. When I used kicker on it earlier, you want to make sure all that's all evaporated, or your glue's going to harden right up on you too fast. That engine's going to fit in there nice and flush. You could probably actually, the other side could have been a solid sheet, but that's alright. It's a trainer, it's not a... There's a boo-boo you don't want to make. I glued all the way down the rail on the inside. You don't want to glue your engine to your hardwood mount. There. Nice thing about making mistakes like this on video, if you're going to tackle a project similar to this, you won't make the same mistake yourself. But anyway, okay, I'm going to put the bottom rail in. Going to do what I should have done the first time. Mark it like that, so I know where to stop the glue. I won't have to worry about gluing my engine in. So I'll give myself the Dumbass of the Night award for that one. Okay, I'm going to glue this up and stick them in there. Okay, second one's in. And the engine's not glued in this time. CA grabs it, it doesn't harden, and I find it'll let go if I pulled on it right now. But once it sets up, pretty much holds everything in place. I don't want to use kicker too much, because then when I go to stick the plywood piece in the top, next thing you know, things are hardening on you instantly, and I don't want that. So it looks good, and I can get some thick or even medium, and get it down in these gaps. Okay, I got the engine mounts in. Engine, I'll put it in just a little snug. Guess I should have spent a little more time fitting, but it won't take much to get a little bit of sanding, get them to fit in there. If I even bother, it's not spreading the wood, so I'm gonna give this a sanding here, and that'll just make sure everything's reasonably flush here before I put the other side on. And when I do, the sanding dust, like I already put CA down in those gaps, but as you can see, it breaks 2 or 3 more attempts. When I sand, the sanding dust is going to go in there. I'll leave it in there, and I'll force it in there, and I'll hit it with a little bit of thin, and that'll harden that up, fill that up real nice. You know, you get laser cut parts and you get this black soot all over your sanding rail. And I'm doing now, I'm just going to taper the edges again, make sure you don't taper the wrong side, and I'll glue this bad boy in place. This side I can actually put the glue on the plywood and stick them in place, because everything else here is where it needs to be. So this is just going to pretty much fit right in the middle. Alright. Probably the last thing I do tonight. Get this, I also find this slow dry stuff doesn't grab your skin as fast as the regular CA does. I'll get this guy laid in place. And despite how long ago I put the kicker on there, luckily I got it in the right spot when I laid it down. She grabbed it, the glue's set up almost right away. This means I rub this down. I still got some wet coming out around the edges, so not perfect on the wing saddle, but it'll I'm out maybe a 32nd of an inch, so I can live with that. So, something to be aware of. That damn kicker, despite the fact that it's been a while, it's still got going on that CA. And luckily I kind of held it up, had it lined up before I dropped it on. But I got away with it. There. Sweet. There. Tomorrow night I'll drill the holes for the engine mount and take her from there. Hopefully get the fuselage finished. Maybe I ought to get going on that one too. The shoestring stunter. This is a real handy little tool. It's from Great Plains. Yeah, I know I said I was going to do this tomorrow, but here we are. It goes down into the engine. Hold her in place. You can see it's got a drill bit in it. Taper fits in your engine mount on the flange on the engine. You get the knurled end here to hold it, the spring there, and you just return it, turn this guy. You're pretty much perfectly lined up every time. Well, so much for waiting for tomorrow night. Can't beat a drill press for getting them nice and square. Well, right tool for the right job, I'll tell you. Each of those holes is perfectly lined up for that engine mount. Got about 1/8 of an inch clearance here. I'll put a spinner on it. If it's not right, or it's off a little too tight, which I'd rather have too tight than too loose, then I'll just simply buzz another 32nd or 16th off the end there. And I don't think 1/8 of an inch is going to throw my balance out that much, if at all. But I'm pretty happy with the material in this kit, I'll tell you. It's really, really impressive. You know, I think Brodak's worth every nickel. Say none of this is light ply. This is good hard birch ply, thin, strong, and like I said, I pre-tapered all these edges, and that'll make rounding that off a lot easier. Okay. Yeah. It's still tonight, even though I said I was going to do all this tomorrow. Got the holes drilled for the engine bolts. I brought the balsa down flush with the plywood and just kind of blended everything in here, and the nose turned out pretty good. And all I got left to do now is just to tidy up in here and to get those joints wicked in with some glue. But what I do with these all the time is I'll run thin CA into each hole and make sure it goes right through. Then I'll kick it, put some kicker to it, get it dried up, and then I run the drill bit through it again. And then I'll probably do I'll do that twice. But it hardens everything up inside, and the big thing is a fuel proof. That glue soaks into the wood and it'll all be nice and fuel proof, because the fuel does get in there, like it or not, it gets in there. And if you get the CA in there, it won't soak into the wood, and your airplane will last that much longer. She's coming. This time I'm going to put it down and hit an A.